hair has such a huge impact on me and my emotional and psychological state of well-being that I could be in a perfectly great space. Like, I'm going to rewind to last October. I remember noticing something about my hair right here. It took up so much space in my mind that it affected every area of my life. I actually started having panic attacks over that. Like, and then the panic was like, oh my gosh, hold on. I think I might be dying. My heart, my lymph nodes were big. I went in for a breast exam and I had the bump. And then it was just, oh my gosh, I have cancer. I'm dying. And I truly believe if I had not had the moment of freak out about my hair that caused actual anxiety that felt like a heart attack, shortness of breath, all of the things that it's a deeply rooted insecurity that if I don't have hair, then I'm not going to be enough. Okay, Carly, I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so happy. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you for being here. I think this is an episode that so many people are excited for. I put the feelers out and just said, hey, I'm going to have Carly on. Many people know who you are because they've been following my hair loss and would you call it recovery journey? What do you call it? Hair loss and recovery journey. Because there are so many women and men, but predominantly women who follow me who are dealing with the same thing. And so they follow my journey. They know who you are. And just the mention that I'm going to have someone on the podcast who might be able to shed some light on an area that they are so self-conscious.
Yeah. And it's scary.
It is.
And there's so much information
scary
out there that it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, you got to clear it up and make it a little bit easier. And people know that you will speak the truth.
Yeah.
You know, you've gone through it. So it's not always, it's hard to find out all the time what's going on. It was a journey for you.
Yeah.
It's still a journey. Your body's changing, your life changes, and so does your hair.
That's it. It is a journey. And I feel like it's like with probably how many people feel with weight loss, right?
Yeah.
It's like when there's someone who loses a tremendous amount of weight, there's this preconceived idea that, oh, once I lose the weight, then everything's fixed, right?
Yeah.
Then I'm better until you lose the weight. And then you realize, oh, now I have to maintain this, right? I have found for me, staying on top of my hair loss is very similar, right? So when I get to a place that's good, it's not like I'm done, I'm fixed. I have to stay on top of it. And this is I'm so grateful for you. How long have we known each other now?
I was trying to think about that. It feels like close to, it's got to be 8 or 9 years.
Yeah. I feel like I was in the middle of shooting like season, was it 2000? No. Okay. I had extensions. And I had just taken my extensions out. So I got those in 2015. So we must have met February 2016 because it was February.
Okay. So 8 years ago. Yeah.
So almost a decade. You have been just a ray of sunshine in my life. And like actually just, you're like a beam of hope for me because I feel like when we as humans are going through something, we don't really understand that there's help in that area. Like we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And when I had taken, my hair's always been fine. Yeah. It's always been thin. I had extensions in for about 8 months. I took the extensions out and I was just, naturally, like, you have half the hair.
You're devastated because you're like, oh, my mane's gone.
And I'm seeing bald spots in my head. And there were bald spots where the traction was from
a big spot in the crown.
Yeah. The huge spot in the crown. I feel like we should make sure that we have all the befores and afters so they can see the progress where I started and how I progressed over the years. But I remember I reached out to, of all people, John Jay. Because he was talking about hair loss on his page a lot. And when he said, oh, call Carly, I did not think that you would provide or even have the ability to provide the level of help and expertise and understanding that you've given me. Like every time I've seen you over the past 8.5 years, which is many, many, many times.
Yeah.
It's like how many times have I walked in just stressed out of my mind? And then I walk out feeling like, okay, there's hope. I'm going to be okay. You are like always up on the latest and greatest research and the tools for hair loss. And I I'm forever grateful.
Oh, well, I love that you're vocal about it because, you know, close to 10 years ago, there wasn't a lot of women talking about hair loss.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing. And you see all these men who walk around, they can shave their head, they can go get a transplant.
And no one cares. Even like when they get it, no one cares about the transplant.
No,
you know?
At all. It's just normal.
Yes.
I mean, how many celebrities do we know were like, oh, they look so good with a shaved head? You don't see women who have shaved heads. I mean, a lot. Now you are.
Demi Moore at one point did. And I remember being like, okay.
Amazing.
Yeah, I know.
That's not right. But
I considered that.
Yeah. I think we all have. We're like, I'm so sick of this hair. But I think I was really happy that you didn't just take the information and do it. And then after talk about it, you were really raw and real. And I think women, that's why they follow you, because of the fact that you always are very real about what's going on in your life. It's not always like this happy thing that's happening. There's a lot of stress involved.
Oh.
There's
Thank
a lot.
you. There is a lot of stress. And I remember, I think I tend, I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but I tend to fall on the side of oversharing versus undersharing. And I have not always been that way, but I think when my life became public and I realized that all of the insecurities that I previously could hide were there for everyone to see. I think I don't think that there was a moment, but I think maybe what it was for me is if I can't beat them, join them, you know? And so I think the only thing worse than telling the world, which was super scary, like I have hair loss. I'm dealing with androgenetic alopecia. That's a scary thing. Like, what are the men going to think? Because, I'm divorced, and what are guys going to think? They're not going to want to grow with alopecia. I have all these thoughts in my mind. But the only thing worse than me saying it, I thought in my mind, is me not saying it and having everyone look at me and think it. Yeah. Right? And so there was like I need to learn how to, even if not love this part of me yet, which I'm learning to. And that's been a journey since I met you, but at least accept that it's real.
What was the response when you first put it out?
And I have chills even you asking this, because it is, courage is the greatest marker of strength, right? Or I'm sorry, vulnerability is the greatest marker of strength. I remember the very first post that I did. I still remember it was like a selfie straight on. You could kind of see in my front area right there. And what I thought would equate to a lot of people judging me was thousands of people saying, oh my gosh, me too. Me too. And I've never been able to tell anyone about it. Like, I've been so insecure, and the DMs just flooded,
I remember that night, because the next morning I woke up and said, what in the world happened? I had so many messages. Women were so glad that you shared it, and then just had a lot of questions. So that's why I'm excited today to talk about, like, what are people asking? Because there's always new trends. Yeah. Like, even when we talk about weight loss, like tirzepatide, semaglutide, this is a whole nother wave of hair loss.
See, that's what I love. I love even what you were explaining to me today, these new things that are coming out. And I'm like, what? Like, I know it's ever evolving, and the knowledge is growing, and really the help is, it's more available to everyone today too, which I absolutely love. So today, my hope for this episode for everyone listening is that, you can glean from my story and Carly's experience something, that actually helps you. And just really listen and take the tools. And now you know a place to go. So everyone go to Carly or her business. What is
there's little steps to take too. I think so many people think, oh my gosh, I've got to do this big. There's little steps you can start making. I think the key is just getting the knowledge right away on what type of hair loss you're experiencing. So then you can start chipping away at that versus I'm not going to do anything. And then you're coming to us now with a much bigger problem, and then we have to be a lot more aggressive. So
then today, by the way, you guys, I have all of your questions for her on this piece of paper. I don't normally have paper when I interview, but I wanted to make sure every single one of your questions get answered. So you're going to walk away with a lot. And Carly,
we're going to do it.
Yeah, we are.
We're going to do it.
Can we first start? Most people here, I think, have followed my hair loss journey a little bit. But for those of you that have not, Carly, how about we you okay if we talk about so for me, I had mentioned it was, 8 years ago, I was 34 years old. I have 3 brothers. I'm the only girl. Okay. I have a mom who has a thick mane of horsehair. It's so beautiful. My whole existence, people thought she had extensions. Yeah. My dad was bald. Yeah. Right. He had thin, fine hair. I shaved his head for him and it like never grew back. Okay. My brothers got thick, coarse, voluminous hair of my mom's.
All of them.
And I got my dad's thin, fine hair with like actually male, almost like some of it sometimes I think is even male pattern baldness. So it's like the crown gets very thin.
And women can get male pattern and men can get female pattern.
Really?
When we talk about that, it's really just, is it going diffuse or is it going bald? Just like sometimes people will go, you have alopecia and they go, oh my gosh, like it's this big thing, but that just means hair loss. It doesn't mean that you're going bald. It just means that you're having hair loss. You can have that from having surgery.
Yes.
So there's a lot of different things that kind of seem scary, but it is highly genetic and it comes from our mother or our father's side. So you just were the number one lucky one.
I got it. I'm so lucky. I am glad that I have the alopecia in the family because I also have a voice. And I know that there are a lot of women out there who, like me, struggle feeling feminine without the hair or the idea of, if I'm noticing hair loss now, which is how I felt at 34, oh my gosh, I'm noticing this now. As I get older and my hormones shift, what's going to happen then? Yeah. Right. And so my journey truly has gone through, I entered bodybuilding shortly after we started working together. Maybe it was then. And that really, you're lifting heavy. We're taking all the boron, the DHEA, all the things to help naturally boost testosterone. The food is very strict. And so I had extensions in at that time, but it was almost like we were running just to keep what was on my head from getting much worse, right? Yeah. We were doing all the things, but when we'll talk about this in a bit, but diet is a huge part of it. Yeah. Hormones are a massive part of it. And then it was like when that phase was over, then it was like, there was divorce and then there was death and there was grief and there was surgeries that happened in between all of that. And then to a point where, last year, my health was just, crazy.
And all of that is us as women, we internalize all these things.
Yes.
So, just like, a decade ago, your life was in a totally different place, but also even from before when you were having eating disorders, that is, vegetarians and vegans, we already kind of struggle with when you don't get enough protein because our hair is protein. So we can struggle with having, harder hair. But when you have had something like that, that really can strip the hair. So when you're already kind of starting off with that, it's your weak link. I always say it's like if you break your foot and you fall, it heals, but it's always weak. So when you already have hair loss, as soon as you have something happen, it's like the first thing to fall out.
And that's exactly what I've noticed, right? It's like, anytime there is anything, it's like if I'm going through a lot of stress in my life, I notice a shed. One of the things that you said to me, and then we'll go back because I want you to talk about my diagnosis to them so they understand. And one of the things you had mentioned to me that was it's something that I always hold on to. And I love knowing this. And if you're out there listening and you are experiencing thinning hair or noticing a lot of shedding, I used to freak out. I would freak out every time. I'd be like, oh my gosh, how many videos have you gotten from me where I'm like, hold on, I'm shedding.
Let me get my ball of hair that's in the shower, which is so common. Like we have people who are bringing their plastic baggies. I've bagged up, and we're laughing. We're like, okay, but it's good because when you start working on your hair, you're very like all of a sudden you're conscious of every hair. Yeah. And guess what? Where do we lose our hair is literally right here where we're looking at it. You're on TV, you're in front of people. So it's even now take that up 100. We all just go to work. We're not like on the limelight. So that is, something reason why you probably panicked and then you lose more hair because you're panicking about that.
Well, and I remember you had mentioned to me, I'll let you explain it, but every so many months, Like it's normal for you to go through a shed.
Yes. 500 to 700 hairs, ladies, a week. So when you wash your hair less, let's say you're panicking, you're like, okay, I'm going to do it every 3 days. Now you're getting 3 times the amount of hair that has to come out. And I always liken it to baby teeth. We don't ever worry about when our kids are losing their baby teeth. We know they're going to have that permanent tooth come right behind it. It has to come out. So every time you go like this, that hair already disconnected 3 months ago. How do you know when it's not normal? Wash your hair for a week. And I always said, now show me that ball on the 8th. And then if you do have truly a huge clump, then we probably have something else going that's triggering that shed.
Which I did over the last year. Yeah, there was a time where I was gathering the hair and in like 3 days, I feel like I had lost like 2 weeks worth of hair. And so that was a big deal. But yeah, I remember you would tell me that, hey, that hair that you lost, it's normal. That hair needed to die so a new one could come through. And all I would think is, okay, what if I'm the one person who lost the hair and it's never going to come back?
Well, and here's food for thought too. If you have a long hair that you physically can see that has fallen out, remember permanent hair loss dries up. So it's underneath the scalp and you never see it. So a long hair would always come back. Because it's long. It still has to. So it would be those little short hairs that you see, then all of a sudden those don't come back, but not a long hair. And so what happens is your hair, you've heard me say this, this analogy, but hair is like a turtle. And when a turtle is scared, it goes into hibernation and it protects itself. Just like a cancer patient loses all of its hair, the skin changes, gets dry, the fingernails. It's the same thing with our hair. When you have something going on internally, if it's a gut issue, your hair, a lot of it goes into a dormancy. So you'll feel finer and you'll feel like your ponytail is smaller because of that. So we have to wake up those dormant hairs and then help. Why did it go into a dormancy?
I love that. So I just want you guys to hear what she said. And also I'm going to say it in another way too, that helps my brain. Yeah. Obviously we talked about, I struggled with an eating disorder for years. So I had anorexia and bulimia. But when I think of the hairs, I think of the long, healthy, thick hairs, right, that come out are okay. Yeah. But when the hair starts to shrivel up, like for me, remember back here for a long time, these were so short and they're still finer, but like they've grown, right? Yes. They're growing, which is wonderful. And those tiny baby hairs that are fine under a microscope, they're essentially anorexic hairs. They're hairs that are not. That's what I always would say.
Yes. I want fat hairs and we don't want anorexic hairs. So eat.
and for me, what you would explain is, and we'll get into more of this in a bit, but you would explain that the food, the nutrients traveling through my blood could not reach the follicle. Right. And so the hair was slowly shriveling. So when I would see those hairs, I would start to freak out. I'm very type A. I'm a little bit obsessive compulsive.
You can't do what you do and not be a little bit.
And so when I would see anything, like whether it be a patch, I'm finally getting to a place, Carly, by the way, where I'm like, okay, guess what? My hair's a little thinner up here and I'm not losing my shit.
You're having your own, like, she's like, okay, remember, Heidi, that these are anorexic hairs. I am. And we've got it. No,
it's actually really nice.
I mean, you've learned after all these years and you're probably literally, I know you DM people and you're now having those conversations to help, but it's normal to feel panic when you see that. It's just, it is what it is.
Can I tell you something too? This is, and I think there are a lot of people listening that can relate to this because I've gotten messages, but hair has such a huge impact on me and my emotional and psychological state of well-being that I could be in a perfectly great space. Like I'm going to rewind to last October. I felt like I was actually in a really great place. Maybe it was September. I remember noticing something about my hair right here, right? Like just it's always kind of it gets better and worse. And it took up so much space in my mind and inside of my emotional being that it affected every area of my life. I actually started having panic attacks over that. And then the panic was like, oh my gosh, hold on. I think I might be dying. My heart, and then went into, my lymph nodes were big. I went in for a breast exam and I had the bump. And then it was just, oh my gosh, I have cancer. I'm dying. And it was like, I truly believe if I had not had the moment of freak out about my hair that caused actual anxiety that felt like a heart attack, shortness of breath, all of the things that it's a deeply rooted insecurity that if I don't have hair, then I'm not going to be enough. And Dave, who loved me without hair, isn't here to love me. So what if no one ever loves me the way that Dave loved me when he knew I had thinning hair?
With that. Yeah.
And it unleashed all of this and, made a health, which there were health things going on. There were swollen lymph nodes. But I think had I not seen that or flipped into a panic over that, I think I would have dealt with all the health stuff differently.
Easier. Yes. And I think too, your dad had cancer.
Well, he had a enlarged heart.
Heart. He was sick.
Yep.
And I think too, sometimes you might, and I don't know for sure, but I think sometimes when we lose a parent and we start feeling a certain way, because if we don't have hair, how many times have you seen a woman who is losing their hair and you think that they're sick? Always,
Carly.
because we associate
and that's
hair
what I thought
loss
was happening
as sickness. So then we think, oh my goodness, I am really sick inside and I've got a young family and I've got to be there. And then it just snowballs.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I was losing more hair because of it.
Right.
Like I was actually having physiological responses that like I could feel my nervous system agitated on a daily basis, multiple times a day. Like the cortisol just coursing through my body. Thinking that, the thin hair was a manifestation of a deeper rooted issue.
Because skin, hair, and nails, when we are sick, I always say this too, when you lose your hair, it's like you've gone through a flu, right? Because you start to lose weight, you go pale, and then you don't have a lot of energy. And what happens to the hair? It doesn't grow like it used to. It starts to get skinnier and then you don't have the energy. It starts to lose its color. So it's the same type of thing. So it's very common to feel like I am sick, something's going on. But I don't want people to think, oh, I'm just having hair loss, because you can have something else going on. That's why we do have that massive shedding. It's like a gut feeling, right? You have a gut feeling because our emotions, anxiety and depression comes from our gut.
Yes.
And it releases through our scalp and our skin.
I like that.
That's why inflammation gets bubbled up because it's happening in our gut.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes it a little bit difficult to tell, like when you're in a space where hair loss is normal and when you're in a space where it's not normal, right?
If you can see scalp. Because if you think you have 60,000 hairs on the top of your head,
except for me, how many hairs do I have on the top of my head?
But
not that many.
Somebody who doesn't have hair loss, you could lose 10, 15,000 hairs, which would be clumps, and never see the see-throughness. So there's two things we look for. You remember?
And that see-throughness on the upper scalp, I've noticed, maybe you can speak to this too, is very common in women my age. I noticed more this year than ever. I'm like, holy, a lot of women are getting that. Is that what it is?
Perimenopausal, but it's kind of like if a guy came in bald, you wouldn't go, I wonder what type of hair loss he has. Is it his thyroid? I always make fun of that. You know he's bald. But it's the same thing with women. What do you look for? How do you know if you have genetic? It's easy. Feel your hair and feel it back here. If it's finer in areas, then you know you have genetics, because the hair does not get finer unless your body's attacking the hair. If you're just having a shedding because you got a new medication, you're going through menopause, you have stress, you would just have a shedding, but it would be all over. It wouldn't be just on the top.
Which that's what was happening to me last year. It was hair loss everywhere, all over, which you were like, that's a good thing.
It's not concentrated right here.
Yeah. And so that was very nice. But also what I noticed, so I just got my hair colored, but I went darker.
I love it, by the way. It's so cute.
I actually feel like it was strong enough now, maybe to handle longer extensions for a little bit. But I did notice when I go dark, the see-throughness of the scalp is much more noticeable.
Because you're fair.
Can you believe I haven't freaked out and text you and been like, Carly, it's worse?
It looks good. And I do tell people, if you are dealing with hair loss, have your stylist do a couple different colors, layer it and do it lighter.
Yeah.
So if you've got, if you have textured hair, if you have darker skin, you wouldn't want to go blonde because then it's going to be that contrast.
Yes.
So this color is great because it's still close to your complexion. So it's not going to be as noticeable every nook and cranny.
Yeah. I love it. I actually have not been for a very long time. I used the hair powder, a lot of it. But I actually, and maybe sometimes I should, but I realized that the more hair powder, okay, so you guys, hair powder, it's stuff that you put on your scalp when it's see-through, which there's no shame in it. I actually
there's no
love
problem.
it.
It doesn't hurt your hair. A lot of people are like, is that going to damage? No.
But I couldn't figure out how to get one that was the exact color, like as my hair
Blondes are the hardest.
I know. So I stopped and I actually realized I like it better because there was something when I would put it on and then I would take it off out of the shower. It was like having extensions and removing them every day.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm balding even more. No, I just took the hair powder out.
Yeah.
So I went through like the last 3 months. I'm like, I'm just going to learn to love my scalp showing just a little bit.
But do you have anything in your hair?
Nothing.
You cannot even see your scalp.
I'm telling you, Carly, I feel like I was even, as you were talking about the thinner hair, I'm like, it's not as thin back here. I feel like we finally, after laser hats and PRP
this is where we need to get you back in while you're in a good state. Because like you said, a lot of times we were always like chasing that.
Yes.
Like, oh, I'm bad again. I need to come in.
Yes.
Like do it so that you're on a routine and keep in front of it.
It's like going to the gym, right? Many people want to go to the gym when they're 50 pounds, 100 pounds overweight.
Or it's New Year's.
Yeah.
We're just going to start.
Yeah, exactly. But the truth is when you show up at the gym and you have that much weight to lose, it's very discouraging, right? Where if you would just go when you're feeling good still to keep up, you minimize your chances of ever getting to a place where the sickness is there because you've been focusing on your health. Same with hair.
Yeah.
It's like if I'm taking my Rogaine oral pills, I'm doing my laser hat, I'm doing all of the things, even though I feel good right now.
Yeah.
I know better.
Because it's not necessarily a race, it's a marathon.
Yes.
Because, genetic hair loss is a lifetime disease.
Yeah.
It's not like you just get to 50 or 60 and it's not going to get worse. It will get worse for the rest of your life. There's ways to totally stop hair loss now. So if I said to people, if there's anything you can do, just stop it. You have your life to do, and you can anytime do the boosters, but at least stabilize so that at 30 or 40, you're not like, oh my gosh, I've got to wear a topper now every day.
I love that you said that. It's only going to get worse for the rest of your life because it's true.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's just, it is what it is. It's like, I spend time and money battling the face with Botox and filler and different things to really race against a clock that it's only going in one direction. One of the best things you did for me when I met with you the first time is you gave me realistic expectations. I had this idea. I wanted all of my hair to grow back, right? And you had just said when someone arrives having lost hair, they already, it was like it's a 50% loss for them to notice that there's a problem. You had said to me, my goal for you, Heidi, based on the kind of hair loss that you have, which I want you to explain in a minute, is to maintain the hair that you currently have so you don't lose more. It's to preserve it. Yes, there's a chance we can grow hair back, right? But you had set that expectation for me and I needed that. I really did. So I didn't have unrealistic expectations that led to
disappointment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've never been disappointed. I've always been, and I do feel like the hairs that I had in my head, I don't know how, but I really do feel like over 8.5 years, we've preserved what is there and actually improved the health of it.
Yes.
So it looks like a lot more. It's not like
and not to say that you didn't go. No, I love that. I always use that analogy. But
I want to be a chia pet.
We all want to be, I want to look like Mufasa, right? I want that Texas hair. But here's the thing. You also have had times where you definitely reversed for a little bit. You had some thinning. I mean, that's where we will run out here. Okay, let's check on it, right?
By the way, she would come out to my house She would check on my hair.
But here's the thing. I don't
even know if you know how great she is. You don't know. There's no one that cares. I'm serious.
Well, I
have such a good heart.
But you have such a big voice on this, and I love that. And whenever you're in that mode, I want to be there, especially when it's a health concern too. You know, there are a lot of things you've gone through that are really scary. And so that's what we're here for. But when it comes to that time, most of our clients, I've had clients for 15 years, they'll come back 7 years later and they'll truly go through a shed. They never got back to the where they were prior. Yeah. But it's normal because things happen in your life.
Yeah.
Whatever that may be.
And we're doing the best to minimize the loss while we can.
Yes.
Right.
And that turnaround is a lot faster. And those hairs are more robust than they ever were before. So they will return. Yeah.
You know, I love for my son, Maddox, right? Maddox he came to see you a handful of times. He was starting to lose his hair in high school.
Which if you see him, he looks like a porcupine. He's got so much hair.
Yes.
But, you know, that's the thing is that I'm so glad that you're aware because do you know that
and he was self-conscious about it and he wouldn't even say anything to me. I could see him looking and like he'd always wear a hat or a beanie.
But that's the age range now that we're seeing. 17 to 29 is the bulk of kids' hair loss. So as soon as you guys see your kids having anything, definitely reach out to somebody because we're having kids have hair loss so much faster than we ever have before. And I just did a podcast on that because the age is now over double or it's earlier than most of the parents have ever had. And so now, I mean, we're working with a handful of kids that are below 5.
This is a question that I had for you was how the landscape of hair loss has changed since you started doing this. Because I remember before COVID, you said COVID shifted a lot too.
It shifted a lot. And I think too, think about the kids, their whole life changed during the pandemic and they're now at home. I mean, school was stressful in a totally different way. But I think you always are going to have shifts in food, environment. Everything we have is Bluetooth. You know, we forget that we have all these aggressors and that is causing our kids. I mean, what do people now, you know, we laugh these podcasts because what do we have sitting in our lap from a child at 2 years old? Yeah. So we're seeing a reproductive issues with kids because they've had so much exposure. So there's all those reasons why it's not causing genetic hair loss. Obviously, you were already predestined to have hair loss by the time you were going to be delivered. It's just what age is it going to happen? So
what you're saying is most people, maybe not everyone, I don't know, maybe it is everyone, we all have some predisposed genetic factor for hair loss or hair thinning because eventually we're going to, you know, maybe not all of us, but it's a matter of which external life factors, maybe it be death or cancer or you name it,
stress, medication.
Yep. Which one is going to actually be the straw that breaks the camel's back that says, okay, we are kicking you into your predisposed genetic hair loss.
Yeah. Because your immune system can only fight it off for so long because your body thinks that your hair is now foreign. It's always been there, but now it's like, wait a second. It's like friendly warfare. I need to attack this. It's been doing too much for too long. And that's why we see it. And so again, not everybody's going to have hair loss. If we all live to 90, we'd all have some hair loss. Yeah. But right now we're just seeing it, you know, in our teens and 20s and 30s. That's a majority of our clients.
So would you say the kids who are in their teens or I guess even 20s, but the 5-year-olds who are experiencing that hair loss, you're saying, am I right in kind of hearing that they already had it, but then life factors are so heavy for them in a way, whether it be exposure
it can be inflammatory. I mean, really, when we're dealing with the kids, we just did a story on a 3-year-old that we're dealing with that really had almost no hair. But again, that's patches. Hers was definitely an autoimmune. So finding out what's going on internally is going to be huge. And now you can see what she looks like and her hair's back and you can just see that light in her face. And that's, you know, for me with teens, especially with bullying and everything, I don't want them, they don't need one more thing on their plate.
Yeah.
They don't need to worry about hiding a bald spot and stuff. And that's what breaks your heart.
Yeah.
But that is more of a autoimmune situation that we'd be dealing with.
Okay. So now can you tell everyone listening about my hair loss?
Yeah.
Okay.
So with Heidi, what she's been dealing with is a genetic type of hair loss.
Okay.
And so she just, especially we deal with, a lot of people who are in the fitness arena. And when you are prepping, a lot of times, just that food change and being so aggressive, you can get some shedding from that. So she's had a couple different things happen where she had the genetic and then what we call telogen effluvium, which is really that uptick in shedding when you're going through something stressful.
Yeah.
So then other different types of things, if your medications and stuff like that, those little tweaks sometimes can cause some shedding as well. And so what we did with her was first do a microscopic evaluation, see where she had the potential to get her hair thicker. And then what we did was stem cell injections and things like that to really help boost. But I always liken to hair like plants. People want to go straight to the fertilizer without fixing the soil. And that's what's different is everybody wants to do, I want to do Rogaine, I want to do transplants, but
what's happening in your gut or in your body? Yeah.
Yeah. Because we send out to transplants all the time, but you could have $10,000 worth of transplanted hair growing in as you have $15,000 going out the door. Yeah. So just let's focus on number one. What's the disease that we're dealing with? And then we have all those things in the future you can do.
How do we stabilize? Like I remember you were big on let's stabilize as much as we can in your body.
Yeah.
And we'll also do the topicals and the different things while we're doing that. So for mine, where I experience thinning predominantly in the crown, back here, I'm very self-conscious of my cowlick back there. I mean, always.
Me too.
If there's a man who's taller than me, I'm like, is he looking at the top of my head? I think about it all the time.
Yeah.
And then front. So that front area, my sides were
temples.
pretty thin for a while. Yep. And I think that's about it until last year when it was just all over.
Yeah. And sometimes the sides.
Yes.
You would have a little bit.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yep. Right there. Yeah. And is that pretty standard for androgenetic alopecia?
And just androgenetic just means it's genetic. And realize that's still the number one cause of hair loss out there. But all these other things are the aggressors to it. So where we have that occipital bone in the back, that's where we're the healthiest. And that's what we can see. That's what your hair looked like when you were a kid.
Oh.
So then when we go
it is pretty thick back there.
Yeah. Whereas women never recede typically. Yeah. They will get the little fine hairs in the temples and then one finger length back right here. We call it the Christmas tree distribution because that part line just widens. So if it was any other type of hair loss, you wouldn't be losing it in that pattern. Okay. And that's how we knew.
Okay. So you were just telling an awesome story about the little 3-year-old girl who you helped grow her hair back or get healthier hair. I know how much you have helped me. And truly, Carly, when I walk into your office or you walk into my home, I don't know, either way, there is something about I know you care. I really, truly know you care. There are some people that care because they want to get something out of it. You are just a good person who cares, which makes me wonder, what had you getting into hair loss to begin with? Did you ever deal with it?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
But that's not why I got into it. I was running a dermatology practice.
Okay.
And they specialized in hair loss, but it was more male dominated. And we did transplants. We never saw women. And I had one cancer patient come in and we didn't have options for her. And she never could look at me in the eye. And she kept her head down and she was a teacher. I ran into her actually a couple of years ago and I said, you're the whole reason I started my business.
I have full body chills right now.
I don't think she realized the impact she had on me. So then I went to a place here. It's called Virginia Piper. And I said, I'd like to do some clinicals. And that I started this cancer element just because I wanted to help get people's self-confidence back. And I felt like there was so much ickiness out there as far as just, snake oil. Like people were always trying to push it. And I thought, I don't like this. I want to create a support group. We teach you how to draw your eyebrows, but we didn't know what would work. And then after about 6 months to a year, they actually invited me to be in the hospital to help cancer patients with their hair, which was amazing. And then I started to really see I want to help women, I want to help children, and I want to help men, but I want to help them before they get to the transplants. And then that's when I started the company. And, like you said, it is hard to find. I tell people all the time, whoever works for me, I've never had to really ever put out there that we're looking for somebody when we're expanding. Really? It's like people, I can't teach to have heart. I can teach you how to do the technology.
Yes.
Yeah. But you can't teach people to care. And I will tell you, when you're working with self-confidence and building somebody up and making sure that they know you're their advocate, you're going to be there, it is different. I will tell you, 5 years into working at the derm place, I did start to have hair loss. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's.
Okay.
I was diagnosed with polycystic ovary disease. And then also I had, I'm trying to think of the name I found out a few years later, tuberculosis.
Oh, wow.
Which I probably caught training over in one of these, odd countries that I went to. But the problem is that I lost so much hair. My kidneys went into failure, and it was just like almost everything. And I had already loved hair loss by this point, but I thought, well, now I'm a patient. Now I've got to do all this. And I do. And I am like everybody else, where you get off the bandwagon and then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm losing my hair. Yeah. I got to get back on. I'm like doing my drops and doing everything. Yeah. So we all go through that. But it just put another layer for me that I'm like, this is such a big deal.
Yeah.
And I was in my, probably my late 20s, early 30s when all that happened.
Wow.
So I totally understand.
I did not know your whole story. So I love that. And it makes me love you even more. I hear you, and I there's probably people listening who are like, gosh, they're talking about, caring about helping women look pretty. That doesn't really matter. Drawing the eyebrows on. Heidi, you have your extensions and it's all about looks. One thing I don't think people truly understand is the emotional impact that hair loss has on women specifically.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak to that for a minute?
What I always bring it back to is, I hate to say it, but a cancer patient. Yeah. When you find out that you have cancer, what's the two first things you think about?
I'm going to lose my hair.
Am I going to live? Am I going to lose my hair?
Yeah.
Because they don't want to look sick to other people. I need to figure out how I'm going to get through this journey without other people treating me different or looking at me different. So if you wanted to shave your head or dye it green, that's your business. But it's your choice. When that choice has been taken away, that's a whole nother story. And so for us, that's the hard thing is like, if I want to cut my hair, if I want to do that, that's my identity. Like when you think of Heidi, you think of your personality, your hair. It's the whole thing,
the
right?
Package. Yeah.
Right. And it's what makes you feel confident.
Yeah.
So that should be your choice. And I think when it's taken away, that's what's hard.
I couldn't agree more with you. And, yes to all of that. And I think one of the beautiful things for me, without going off on too much of a tangent, is having dealt with this now for over 8 years. It has been, it's like I every time I feel like I'm losing hair, I remind myself, okay, who am I with hair? Who am I without hair? So it's another opportunity. And I'm telling everyone listening this because I know there's someone out there who's like, gosh, but I'm at the point where my hair is not coming back, right? Because there are cases where hair just doesn't come back. And that's a possibility. I always think that is a possibility. So I better do the work over these years to love who I am, whether I have hair or not. But guys, if you don't deal with hair loss or you never have, if you've never walked in those shoes, it's nearly impossible to feel what it actually feels like. It's a hard thing to say, am I enough? Am I lovable because of all of our past wounding from childhood? If I don't have the thing that tells me I'm pretty or I'm valuable or I'm wanted
or just our bodies. Like, do we look a certain way? I guess you have to love yourself, right? Just even like before you find a mate or anything, we always look for something else to make us happy, to be happy. And we can't do that. We have to be able to be okay. But there are so many solutions and there's ways, there's things that you can do to give you because even if you had healthy hair, you'd never probably be able to grow your hair as long as that. Because when we get older, our hair growth cycles shorten. So we want to have a little length.
Do you know, I actually believe that part of the reason my hair is so healthy right now is because I spent time with no extensions and little extensions when I had them in and short hair. And I spent time trying and learning to love who I was on the inside that was not always reflective on the outside. And I swear to you, Carly, my hair started growing. And one of my things that I would think about, this is funny, is I wouldn't say it's funny, it's interesting. You are someone always in my life. I'm like, Carly knows what my hair looks like. The thought of anyone before you getting up close and looking at my hair and poking with needles and going to the parts where it's really thin.
Oh yeah. It's like putting your finger in your eye. Yes.
It is worse, you guys, than going to a gynecologist for the first time. I'm not kidding you, because there's so much insecurity with my hair. And so knowing, Carly, that you know me, like you know my hair, you know how thin it really is, even if I can hide it for the rest of the world.
You've seen my soul.
Yes.
Okay.
That's how it feels. It's like the literal, it's like opening the kimono. Like that is the ultimate, is like letting someone, be all up in your hair when you know that it's thinning. And you love me exactly how I am. I'm not, I like, without getting, I could get emotional right now and cry, but like that really meant a lot to me and still does. Like to know that someone can see and accept all of who you are.
Yeah.
And be
see,
like,
and I didn't
you're
even
a beautiful
realize
person.
how affected you were by it at the beginning. I knew years later.
I hit it.
But you really did, because you are such a bubbly, nice, and I was like, she's so great. Like it didn't even seem like it bothered you.
Oh gosh.
To the extent that it did.
I think I was still learning to be vulnerable back then.
Yeah.
Like I think for many of our lives, I think we walk with a mask on that we think everyone wants to see. And I always need to be positive. And then I learned, no, I can actually be pissed. If I'm pissed, I can be sad. I can cry. I can show people who I am and what I'm going through. And chances are they can relate, or you can relate. Right. And I think that's all part of the self-love journey, like learning how to love who you are with or without hair. Okay. So there's so many places we can go. I have so many great questions from viewers. Some of them we may have already tapped on. So we'll decide. Now, the first one I want to talk about, we're kind of going to go nitty gritty a little bit from here on out. I want to dive deep. There's a lot of people listening that are like, okay, and we talked a little bit about this. What causes hair loss? How do I get a diagnosis? What are the myths around hair loss? So first, I want to start by asking viewer question. What are the most common causes of hair loss in men and women? And also I'm going to add to it, what hair loss myths are you aware of? Because that was a question that came through.
Myths are huge. Myths are huge. So actually, can I show you something?
Yeah.
Okay. So when we look at so many times people, again, shedding is a big myth that people think, oh, that's bad. That's actually good.
Okay.
We don't want that.
So shedding is good. Everyone listen, if you are shedding, it is good.
Yes, that is a good thing. So when we're looking at good hair, I'm going to show you what this looks like. Just I'm pulling someone's random microscopic. So what we do is we look at the hair under a microscope, magnify it times 50, and we look at what you were born with, and then we look at those areas of concern to see where your sick hairs are, because we can
thin anorexic hairs. Okay.
But first we're going to look at like
obese hairs. Those are great hairs.
Nice, thick, good hair.
Yes.
But then we go into an area that you're thinning, and then you'll see, what does that look like?
Little fine baby hairs.
But this person literally has no loss in their hair.
And this is the same person of the big, thick, obese hairs we just looked at. Wow.
So if you look at the amount of hairs in the both images, it's probably around the same amount, but it looks like it's a tenth of the amount.
Some
because
are translucent. So I can see them when I look up close. There's hair there. It's just you can't see them because it's see-through.
Right. So if I can only see this under a microscope, and then I start to fix the soil and jumpstart this, now you're going to be like, oh, I grew new hair.
No.
You didn't grow. We can't resurrect the dead.
Yeah. I love that. So, you cannot, your hair is not Jesus.
No,
you can't
we are
resurrect
not Jesus. And we can't miraculously do that. But
I like that. So like if there's a clean, bald area, you're not going to regrow hair unless there's baby fine hairs already there.
That's why we do transplants. We always rob Peter to pay Paul. Oh. So we're taking hairs
Peter
from an
always
area.
has so much, damn it.
So we got to take it from somebody else, and we put it up. Fun fact, you can't take from anybody else. Just so you know.
I know this.
Unless
and
you have an identical twin. She did ask. I'm not going to lie.
I did so much online research. I'm like, oh, somewhere in Europe, they're doing something where they're,
it's okay.
Yeah.
You're going to keep me on my toes. She's like, I want to know, are they cloning yet?
I was
what are we
planning
doing?
on asking you, is it possible yet? At some point, I feel like they've got to figure it out. If they can,
they are, and that's what we'll talk
hopefully
about. Some
before
of the,
I die.
Yeah, we are talking about cryopreservation here soon.
Love this.
But so when you see this, that's why it's important that we can do microscopics so that we can see. Okay, yes, you actually are you have a good potential to get this back because you have everything there.
Okay,
it's not dried up.
I love that. Which is another question that was asked is how do we get a proper diagnosis? So for someone who's at home, who's like, gosh, I feel like I've been shedding a lot, like maybe it's a lot thinner. Are you saying that person, instead of waiting, they should go get checked immediately?
It's always good because 40% of our patients don't even live in state. So I would say the first thing is do a Zoom. It's complimentary. Let us see the pattern.
Got it.
We even send microscopes out to people.
Really?
Yeah. So if they're like,
so
I really want to, we'll send little ones so we can see. But usually we can get an idea. Then we'll put in lab work. Doesn't matter where you're in the country. We can do lab work. We can do a hair analysis. Anything to see what's going on in the system. So almost everything that we can do in our office, we can do virtually for you too.
I love that. And that's what you had done for me originally. So I went into your office, you did the microscopic thing all over my head, took those same pictures. You did lab order back then. I went and got my lab work done somewhere. We did a hair analysis and you came back with so much information. And what was great is you didn't throw all of it on me at once. You were like,
baby steps.
Here's what we want you to do first, right?
Well, we've got to take it and let's get a program now. So for instance, when you are getting your lab work, I think it's really important to notate your labs might be within range. How many times do we hear from the doctor? Everything looks normal, but you're like, I'm not normal. Something is not right. I'm not like the just normal 45-year-old that's, a female in the United States. So iron has to be different when you're having hair loss. Ferritin, vitamin D. Most of our clients are on a vitamin D supplement, but they're deficient. So why? So there's tweaks that you can do with what you're taking, but finding out what you truly need to be on versus I'm taking a ton of supplements and nothing's working, because you don't want to take something that you're not actually deficient in.
I love what you're talking about right now, because some people listening might be hearing for the very first time the idea that their hair loss could be connected to deficiencies inside of their body, because social media, we are plagued with, and I post about products that I use, but one of the things I try to say is, you guys, it's not just the topicals. It's not the shampoos. You can topical and shampoo it all day long and still have continued real hair loss, because your vitamin, mineral, nutrient, all of the things that are deficient or going on in your body are not looked at or taken care of. To that, a lot of the questions, best supplements for hair, best shampoos and conditioners, what actually works. So there's all of these things that they're asking, even PRP and exosomes. Would you say that it's far more important for them to start doing blood work rather than spending all the money on?
Yeah. So, and that's a big thing that we'll do right away, because again, we don't want to just waste your money and throw everything at the wall, right? Yep. We just had a woman in my office. She looked like she had lost 60 to 70% of her hair. Her vitamin D was over 2,000 because she was taking so many supplements. She was having toxic hair loss. Wow. And these were supplements that are really well advertised out there. And it's not that those are bad, but for her, it was actually causing her, she looked like she was going under treatments.
Because you're saying, and I don't know if this is the same supplement. I love Nutrafol. I love it. Because it is a whole, like it's an all-encompassing vitamin inside out. However, I think it's really important for people to understand that what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for everyone else. And same with the shampoos.
And making sure that you are deficient in some of those key ingredients, because she was taking that but
And
she was
wasn't
too
deficient.
high.
Yes.
And so now she was at, because I would say the max you would want to be is 60. And again, I say that only because I'm giving you an average.
Yeah.
Now, some people's doctor might want them lower. So again, we have to look at everybody's individuality when it comes to this. So we test for those specific labs that affect the hair. And then we tell you the ranges for hair loss, because your doctor might say, well, you know what? Your vitamin D is okay. Your ferritin is okay.
Yeah.
But that could be actually 4 times lower than what it needs to be because you have
for optimal
hair loss.
growth.
Yes.
Got it.
So number one is that there is not a magical supplement. It's finding out your body and what's going on and what are you deficient in. Because like if your A1C is through the roof, you're not metabolizing sugars. That's creating a lot of inflammation. And then we're seeing a lot of hair loss. So hair care, same type of thing. We've talked about this
Shampoos.
first.
Yeah. What's the best shampoo and conditioner?
And the best
Answer?
myth is that you should wash your hair what? Less or more? We want you to wash your hair more.
Yes,
because,
which was so crazy.
Yeah.
When I come in, you're like,
no.
wash it every day. I'm like, what? Like, I heard to preserve the hair.
Yeah.
Don't wash it. But your reasoning and explaining to me, it's like with, like face
acne.
care. Yes.
If you have acne, do you say, I'm not going to wash my face because it has good oil? Well, yeah, but that oil for you is not doing very well. That oil is actually what's carrying the hormone that causes hair loss. Yeah. And what happens is you can see that there's dilation around the pits when you, or the follicle when you have hair loss, and it gets trapped in there. So if you have extensions, let's say, just wrap your hair around in the back and put it in a bun and just wash the top. And
That's
even
what
every
I did
other day.
Yesterday.
Or 2 days. That's fine.
Just
it doesn't
scrub.
have to be every day, but just wash it more frequently to remove that off. So a tonifying shampoo, alternating.
Which I have those from you. Yeah.
And you want to make sure to alternate.
Yeah.
Don't just use, it's like mascara.
I alternate mine too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
I do. My shampoo.
Keep your hair guessing.
Yep. I love it. And it works for me. Sometimes I'll do a volumizing one. The other time I'll go do, and usually I'll layer it. I'll even do 2, right?
Yeah.
Because one is the exosomes or whatever you've given me, the tonifying.
And then condition.
Yeah.
Because that blood vessel is no longer feeding the hair like it used to. So I always liken it to like an umbilical cord. If that is constricted, that baby's going to get small. We need to make sure that we're putting water and oil into that. So condition the whole scalp and then rinse it out. Use a lightweight. I don't know that I've
been conditioning the whole scalp. I need to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one of the other analogies that I love is to your face. So when I go in for a facial, one of the things that helps my skin the most is when she gets that razor blade out, and she's not only getting rid of the hair, she's sloughing off all of the dead skin that I should have sloughed off with a exfoliator, right? Yeah. I didn't realize that the same thing was happening on my head until we got under the microscope. Yes, there was the oil, but also there was a lot of buildup of dead skin that I was not exfoliating off of my scalp.
And people who have hair loss tend to have more of that debris. And we don't even realize. Right? Yeah. So if we get dead skin, and then where can that oil go? It's trapped.
Yes. Okay. So what you're saying, for anyone listening, they should not be going every 3 to 4 days or 5 days or 6 days washing their hair. They should try to wash their hair every other day.
Yeah. Every other day. It's whatever you feel comfortable with. But what I will tell you is that just like us sitting in this house, we've got dead skin, dirt, debris that's landing on our hair. And so you just need to keep it really clean and just clean it a couple times. And that's never going to cause hair loss.
Okay. I love it.
Yes.
Okay. So next question. We're moving past the supplement shampoos.
PRP?
Yes, actually, because someone wanted to know your thoughts on cutting edge treatments.
Yes.
They said PRP, exosomes, and laser caps.
Yes. Okay. So we actually just had the NASDAQ
and
just
is
put
it
out.
Permanent? Okay. So because another person asked if it was permanent. So
here's the thing. It's like mowing your lawn, right? We have to seed, we have to fertilize, but you've got to keep that good soil. So if you said, hey, I'm going to just really do my fertilizers really great, but I'm never going to take care of my lawn, it's not going to work. Yeah. Here's the thing. People do it in the wrong order. So if I go right in, how many times people have come to me and said, I've done PRP.
Yeah.
But most clinics are doing what you remember the vampire facial?
What is PRP? Because some people don't know what PRP is. Sorry to interrupt.
No, PRP is where we take your blood and we spin it out. Mm-hmm. So they started to see that with vampire facial. It was originally made for the skin. Yes. So whatever we start with the skin always ends up working for the scalp. But what we do for the skin, you can't do the same for the scalp. It needs to be more in depth because it's a different type.
Yes.
This is, you don't have a lot of fat. So we do what a higher concentration for that. So if you are looking at PRP, make sure that you're asking, are they using like what an orthopedic does? Like, are they spinning it down multiple times? Here's the number one reason. When you spin it down only one time, you have still red blood cells in there. And it looks pink.
So you want it to be white.
It
clear,
should be
yellow.
Like yellow. Yeah. Because when you don't get the red blood cells out, you already have an inflammatory disease. And now you're putting more red blood cells, which can accelerate the loss.
So it can't look like the actual vampire facial, which is blood all over your face.
Right. So people just took what I'm doing for facials, I'm just going to do the same thing for hair. And it needs to be really a lot different. Now we actually did a 2-year national clinical where we take your exosomes out of your PRP so we can get your own versus getting it, from age 0.
Yes.
So when we do PRP with exosomes, and exosomes is much different. If you think of a tiny little messenger that tells and directs your cells in your body where to go and what to do. So it's kind of like a fire chief tells its firefighters where to go, where the house fire is, what the address is.
It's like a little manager, like
it's
a micromanager.
It's a micromanager.
I like it.
So it tells your body what's going on.
Okay.
So PRP would just add those growth factors in and help grow, but this actually directs traffic.
Like PRP's like the man who just does the work, and the exosomes are the woman who's like, you go here and you go here, you do this.
And this is the issue. And this is how we're going to fix it. So that's huge. But again, it's making sure that that home that we're putting those in are good.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So my question about that is, does PRP work for everyone?
It depends.
And how many treatments before they see results?
Yeah. So usually we'll do what would be equivalent to 7 or 8 single spins, which you get out there. We do 2. So we do 1. And you always want to make sure your clinic is microneedling. Okay. So, like how we do for the face.
I feel it. I know exactly what microneedling is. We do it on the scalp.
And why? Because we're causing these micro traumas so that your body's like, hey, there's a problem. I'm going to rush my own messengers up there. Yeah. And then we increase. You're never going to really have a disadvantage of doing that. You always should get some results. The problem is take photos. Because if you don't take photos, you're never going to know. How many times did you come in and you're like, I don't know. And then we're like, oh my gosh. And then there's times where you really have looked worse, but we have those photos to be able to say, you are dealing with the shedding. We need to do whatever. So taking photos and making sure, because if you don't see it, then you're not going to realize it, because nobody notices when you're losing hair. I mean, I shave my legs every day. I don't notice the hair growing back. You're not going to notice hair growing back on your head.
Yeah. I've had a handful of people say, oh, I tried PRP once and it didn't work for me.
But they never probably did something to stop
it.
They
did it once. Yeah. And don't you have to typically show up a handful of times?
1,000. And again, it's what is the concentration? Yes. Are they doing the highest? And what are you doing first to stop the loss? Because again, PRP will just give you that initial growth, but then it needs food to keep absorbing. And that's the problem. There's a lack of food.
It's almost like saying, I went to the trainer at the gym once and it didn't work. Like I'm still unhappy. But I still want to eat sick. Bad. And I'm going to eat the Cheetos and the whatever. And I'm not going to go back to the gym.
Right.
But that should have worked. So So you need to be consistent. You need to be doing your homework, right? Okay.
All these therapies absolutely work. And before we ever touched any of these, we did clinicals to see how often you should be doing it so that we know. But make sure that you're on a stabilizing tool. Are you on oral minoxidil way before you do this, or laser or Propecia before you even think about doing PRP?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I have a lot of people who want to know all of the things that I do for my hair. And part of me is like, oh, do I tell you? Because I don't want people just to go out there and do all the things. But I have done plenty of PRP. I've done the exosomes. I do regular laser. I take the supplements that I know I'm deficient in. Right. I use the shampoos and serums that you have told me to use based on my
But you would have we would have never even touched you doing a medical treatment until you were doing all the things first, and we could see that your scalp was prepped for it.
Yep. And I actually think the oral Rogaine has been a game changer. I do not miss a day. Yeah. And maybe that's a huge part of what's happening
and being
in my
consistent.
Hair too.
I think
you have to be consistent. Consistency is huge, and just all the things. Okay, we're gonna do rapid fire. A few rapid fire things, and then I know we got to get going. Okay. rapid fire. This is going to be fast. What are the best, they want to know, best budget-friendly options? Do serums work?
I would say you would do minoxidil is one of the top.
Yeah. Which is Rogaine.
Yeah.
Right.
Rogaine or minoxidil. And I'm going to just tell you real quick, shedding is not the problem. Just make sure that you know that you could shed a little bit because you've got agitation. It should tingle and it should burn a little bit. That means it's trying to wake up the dormant hairs. That's what minoxidil does. Minoxidil does not stop hair loss.
Okay.
But it's fantastic, affordable way to help, or your oral minoxidil.
So if you could do one thing, if someone listening can only do one thing, you would say, get on minoxidil. Get tested first. But if they only have access and they want to start something now, minoxidil.
Yeah, I would do that.
I like that. Next one. Why is my hair breaking halfway down?
Okay.
And does this mean I'm experiencing hair loss?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So what I will tell you is your blood vessels are connected to your root. And if those aren't open, then they're feeding it less water and oil. And so you'll have a lot of breakage. That could be due to genetics. Are you coloring it different?
Yeah.
How are you taking care of it? If your hair is finer, not breaking, that's when you know you have a serious problem.
Okay.
So just check, is it breaking or is it actually feel finer?
Okay, I like that. Next one. Can my thyroid medications or pregnancy depletion be the reason I'm losing hair loss? And is this long-term?
So any medication changes, thyroid's a big one, hormones, testosterone, any of those, you can have a short-term shed, but that hair will return.
Okay.
And here's a good rule of thumb. Usually 10 to 12 weeks after you've had a major change is when you'll see some shedding. That hair will pop back unless you were predestined to have that genetic hair loss in the future.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to pregnancy, 1 second about this. Moms out there, you are supposed to shed how many hairs a week?
A lot.
500 to 700 hairs.
500 to 700.
Do you know that when you're pregnant, you are rocking that luscious, huge hair because you're not shedding during your pregnancy?
I need to get pregnant.
Yes. And everybody goes, I want to get on
forever.
They want to get on prenatals to help.
Yeah.
When they realize when I was pregnant, I had the best hair and now I've delivered and I have no hair.
But is it not the prenatal?
It's
is it
not
the
the
HCG
prenatals
that's kind of keeping?
Well, it's your body. You're just replacing the supplements because you're giving yours to your baby. So after you deliver, those 9 months worth of hairs you should have been shedding come out. So it's not that you have a disorder.
Yeah.
It's just that's our
You
body's
were
way.
lucky for 9 months.
Yes.
Right? Is basically what it was.
Exactly.
Okay. And then final thing. Someone asks, what advice do you have for people like me who are struggling with the emotional side of hair loss?
That's a good one. I think talking about it, if you have a friend who has similar problems, I think you'll find that when you start talking to even a close friend that you know is not judgmental, that you could talk about everything with, you'll find that a lot of people are like, do you know that I struggle with that too? Because we're so good at concealing our hair. I mean, we've got faux bangs, we have extension, you have all these things to make it look like you have hair, so people don't even realize there's an issue. You don't know
what's real and what's not.
No.
Who's struggling, who's not.
So just talk to a close friend about it and know that there's so many of us who are dealing with that. And you can message us. I mean,
can you give them your Instagram and all that stuff? And then I'm going to throw one more question at the end. Then we're done.
Our website is nhlma.com. And there's any question that you can have, you can write into us with any questions that you have.
I'll put a link to that in the show notes too, so you guys will have it. My final question, because I do know that there's more than one person listening who's like, gosh, I've tried it all. Like I've tried the serums, I've tried this, I've tried that, I've done the blood work, and I still am struggling. What advice do you have for that person?
Talk to a professional about it. Okay. Most people who have come to us aren't, it's not their first time talking to somebody about hair loss. We're usually in the last resort.
Yeah.
And most people have the tools. They're just not doing it in the right order and they've never tracked it. So our biggest goal for people is just education, teaching them. And every time they're like, I never realized that. So sometimes we say, you have everything you need. We're going to just tweak this. And that, if I could give anybody any advice, it would be always to talk to somebody who they specialize in that versus us going down the rabbit hole on the internet and trying all these things
and freaking
doing
out
it for a month or 3 months, and then they're getting off of it and never being consistent because you don't even know what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm going to liken it to nutrition, because when someone comes to me who's like, I've tried everything, right? And like, there's got to be a magic pill. No, actually, we're going to feed you the same proteins, carbs, and fats. We're just going to tweak it and reorder it. And the magic is in that.
Right.
And all of a sudden it starts working. So same with hair. It's like what you have is already there. Like what you need for it to work is already there. I'm just going to show you how to do it in a way that actually works. So what you're saying, Carly, is there's hope. The person who feels hopeless, is there hope?
There's hope. And not only that, there's ways that we can even start storing, stem cells, your own stem cells for later that you can reuse. And there's just so much out there now that can help. There's no reason that somebody should say, I'm losing my hair and there's nothing I can do. There's clinicals, there's JAK inhibitors now that is helping totally transform the world of alopecia areata, where we have kids who literally are bald, losing their brows, losing everything that for the first time they're getting all their hair back. So there's we work with all these different types of associations. So if you can't afford it, maybe we can get you into a clinical. So there's just tools. You just got to go to people who know what those tools are.
I love that. What I'm hearing you say, and I want everyone to really listen to this, is if you are hopeless, if you are defeated, if you are feeling like there's no path to better hair, if you've been told, because I know I have, if you've been told that this is just the way it is and it will never get better,
that kills me.
It's been by medical professionals, right? If you've been told you are doomed, do not listen. Do not give up hope. Do not stop trying. Don't take no for an answer. Find a professional. Find a professional like Carly. Get an evaluation. Let them help you figure out how to figure yourself out.
Because even if there is something, that rare case that they've already lost the hair, then we can help get you in the right track with somebody who can conceal it for you so that you're not plagued by every time looking in the mirror and just being devastated by the way you look. There's ways to conceal it. There's ways that we can find a provider in your area, somebody to help so that you can at least look back to the way that you used to in your eyes.
Whether powders, toppers, wigs, anything like that.
There are so many natural things now that you look like, they don't have wigs and toppers that don't look unnatural.
I have 3 wigs, you guys.
They look so natural. I mean, they look like skin.
I don't wear them, but they look very natural.
They do. Yeah. But listen, if you're going to be on TV and you need to look a certain, there's a time and place, and there's some people who just need a little bit of a topper that looks natural.
The topper you gave me is magic. I wore it for family pictures and you can't tell.
No, but
it's incredible.
Again, that's what we call a U-shaper. Yeah. You pull your hair up, you put it around, your own hair goes on top so nobody can tell. So it's just those silly little things and that just make our world.
You would never know that they exist unless you speak with someone like Carly. So I love it. Anyone listening who feels like, it's never going to get better, trust me, it will.
Yes.
Carly, thank you so much for coming all the way to my house.
It's so funny. We talk about confidence and you just don't realize how much this affects so many people. It really does. And I love that we're talking about this. And I love that you are bounced back and that you're in a good space.
Today.
And I love your hair color.
Thank you. All right, Carly. And everyone listening, thank you for being here. Carly, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I love you all. If you have any questions, go find Carly. We're at again,
at
Instagram.
NHLMA. Yep.
What's your
and we
Insta?
can put it on NHLMA.
NHLMA is your Instagram. Yeah. Okay. Find her on Instagram or DM me and I can connect you with her. I love you guys. Carly, I love you.
Thank you.
Oh, so good to see you. You too.